Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel where dramatic, emotional, and unexpected stories await you every single day. If this is your first time here, don't hesitate to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the thrilling developments in the upcoming videos. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for always being with me. Get ready because right now, the story is about to enter its most intense and breathtaking phase yet. In the previous video, the tension between James and Diep had reached its peak. James, overwhelmed by a series of misunderstandings and deep-seated emotional wounds, deliberately avoided Diep. No explanation, not even a message, leaving Diep lost in a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, and a longing that tore at her heart. Their love, already tested by countless storms, now stood on the brink of collapse as outsiders began to wedge their way in. Tùng, once a close friend, now seemed to always appear when James was absent. And Trang, a woman driven by her ambition to marry into James' wealthy family, didn't hesitate to exploit every opportunity to pull him further away from Diep. Everything seemed set in a spiral of misunderstanding, ambition, and heartbreak. But today's video will change everything you thought you knew. Because a shocking twist is coming. Tùng, man once suspected of betrayal, suddenly turns back. No one could have imagined that behind his cold demeanor and puzzling actions, Tùng was secretly working with the police in a covert operation to uncover the true mastermind behind it all. Could it be that all of Tùng suspicious behavior was just a cover? Is he risking everything to expose the real enemy, John, the man who's been silently tearing James down from the inside? What you're about to witness is an unthinkable turning point when trust is misplaced, when those we doubted are actually carrying a hidden mission, and when the truth finally explodes. Will James and Diep's love be strong enough to survive it all? Watch until the very end, because every moment ahead holds the key to unraveling the dark conspiracy surrounding these three souls caught in a game of power, love, and betrayal. Since the day John was released from prison after serving a long sentence for fraud and corporate sabotage, James had carried a persistent sense of unease. As the very man who had once brought John to ruin, James knew his enemy all too well, someone who never forgot a grudge and certainly never accepted defeat. And soon, that anxiety became reality. Less than a month later, James began to notice alarming signs at one of his company's most crucial projects, the suburban urban development zone. What had once been a model of progress and land clearance suddenly spiraled into chaos. Dozens of households, many of whom had already signed agreements, abruptly withdrew their consent. They flooded the local authorities' headquarters with banners and demands, insisting on compensation rates several times higher than initially agreed upon. Local media picked up the story and amplified it. Social media exploded with doctored clips accusing James' company of oppressing poor families. His business rivals seized the moment to spread rumors. The company's stock began to fluctuate. Amid this mounting pressure, James kept his composure. He knew too well such sudden and coordinated backlash couldn't be random. Someone was orchestrating it. A hidden hand was stirring the waters, manipulating public opinion with precision, without delay. He launched a discreet investigation, and soon, the truth was laid bare. John was behind it all. The disgraced ex-convict had returned, and this time he struck not only with schemes, but with the cold ruthlessness of a man who had lost everything. But what hurt James most wasn't John. The real blow, the deepest betrayal, came from a name he never expected to see in the report: Tùng. Tùng, the childhood friend who had stood by his side through thick and thin. The man who had helped him build project after project. The one James trusted so completely. He had even given him shares in the company to ensure he would stay. Now, Tùng was conspiring with John, working from the inside to sabotage everything they had built together. James was stunned. A part of him still hoped there had been a mistake. But the documents, the recordings, the photos, the evidence was irrefutable. This betrayal wasn't just a blow to his business, it was a knife to the heart, one wielded by someone he had once called family. What lay behind this treachery? Why had Tùng changed? Was he bribed, or was there a deeper reason hidden beneath it all? Though James and Tùng had once clashed over their mutual feelings for Diep, James never believed that Tùng would truly betray him. But when he discovered that Tùng had been working with John, his sworn enemy, it shattered him completely. He wasn't angry, just hurt. Hurt because his trust had been misplaced. Hurt because someone he once called a brother had turned his back in the darkest hours. Still, James made a decision. He would meet Tùng not to accuse or condemn, but to reason with him. If there was even a fragment of brotherhood left between them, James hoped Tùng would turn back before it was too late. After learning about John's upcoming plan, Tùng felt as if he were being pulled into an endless spiral of inner torment. At first, when John approached him, Tùng hesitated. His reason warned him that this was the wrong path. But the resentment that had quietly smoldered in his heart for years built up from always being overshadowed by James. From standing in the shadow of the man he once considered a brother began to erode his judgment. His feelings for Diep, the woman he had secretly loved for so long, only made things worse, especially as he watched her drift further away, drawn ever closer to James. John had seen those cracks in Tùng soul, and he exploited them without mercy. He promised everything: money, power, a chance to win Diep, everything Tùng had ever longed for. And in a storm of bruised pride and wounded ego, Tùng stepped into the dangerous game, telling himself it would be enough to simply stand on the sidelines and watch it all fall apart. But John's plan wasn't just about revenge. He wanted to kidnap Diep to force James into handing over full control of the corporation. And if needed, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate James entirely. Tung's heart clenched with every word he heard. He had thought he was only an outsider, not directly involved, but the deeper he got, the more suffocated he became. There was no way back, and no one left to pull him out. He often wandered into the garden alone, seeking quiet to think. Old memories came flooding back like an unending nightmare. James, the man who once split his last piece of bread with him during the hardest times. James, who had risked his own reputation and defied the board just to give him another chance after a critical mistake. And Diep, the gentle, pure-hearted woman who might have been the last light left in his darkening world. Now reduced to a pawn in John's twisted game, a victim in a plot Tùng himself had helped to create. Tùng was consumed with guilt, every second, every breath, caught between hatred and brotherhood, between selfish love and the remnants of his humanity. He felt like a man lost between two cliffs with no bridge in sight. Diep's face appeared in his mind, her eyes, if they ever filled with tears because of him. Would he ever be able to live with himself again? He stood before the mirror, staring at the man he had become, disheveled hair, haunted eyes, a face twisted by guilt, and he asked himself, what have I become? He didn't want to be a traitor. He didn't want to be John's pawn, and he could no longer bear being the cause of Diep's pain or James's fall. And so, on a cold evening, with the rain tapping softly against the window pane, Tùng picked up his phone. His fingers trembled as he typed a message, just a few simple words, but all the courage he had left. We need to talk, one last time. When James received Tung's message, he was stunned. He had been planning to find Tùng himself to talk him out of this mess, but he never expected Tùng to reach out first, without delay. James arranged a private meeting. When Tùng walked into the room, their eyes met, one gaze wary, the other heavy with guilt. No words were exchanged at first, only the ticking of the wall clock echoed in the thick, tense air. At last, it was Tùng who broke the silence. He laid everything bare, John's plan in full, step by step, detail by detail. John wanted to kidnap Diep, force James to hand over the entire corporation. And if James resisted, the consequences would be far worse than a failed business deal. James listened in silence, emotions surging within him, anger, yes, and disappointment, but above all, relief. A faint smile touched his lips, not because things had gotten better, but because his old friend, the one he had once considered a brother, had finally come back to the right side. Thank you, Tung, James said, voice low but sincere. I always believed, deep down, you were still a good man. I never stopped believing that. The tension still hung in the air until James made a bold proposal. Tung would continue pretending to work with John, but in truth, he would act as a double agent, coordinating with the police to collect evidence and bring John to justice. Tung went silent. He understood the risk. If John found out, there would be no forgiveness. But he also knew this was the only chance to end it all and protect Diep. After a long pause, Tung nodded. I'll do it, not for you, for Diep. James nodded slightly, believing that things were finally turning in their favor. But then, Tung continued, his eyes sharp yet filled with ache. But James, I'm helping you now because of the past we shared and because I don't want Diep to get hurt, that's all. But when it comes to love, I've never given up. You may be the CEO, you may be the one she loves now, but I won't stop. I'll fight to win her back, to make her mine. James froze, not out of rage, but because he realized this wasn't just a battle against John. It was a war between two men for the heart of one woman. No more words were spoken, only the wind slipped through the window crack, carrying the weight of their tangled emotions. To friends, to rivals, two men who once stood shoulder to shoulder, now facing off from opposite sides of love. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, James arrived at the headquarters of the Special Investigations Unit, which handled high-level criminal cases. His eyes were filled with tension, but his posture remained firm, as if he were ready for whatever came next. After presenting his identification and verifying his identity, James was escorted into the office of a senior investigator without hesitation. He laid everything out. The kidnapping plot targeting Diep, the scheme to seize control of his corporation, and most importantly, Tung, the man once connected to John, who had now switched sides and was willing to become a double agent. The investigator listened carefully, nodding as James spoke. When James finished, the officer paused for a moment, then replied firmly, if what you say is true, we must act immediately. This man, Tung, he's the key to exposing the entire network behind John. He requested that James provide Tung's current location and all relevant contact details. Soon after, a special task force was discreetly dispatched to meet with Tung, under the utmost secrecy, to discuss their cooperation plan. Every move was conducted in strict confidentiality to avoid alerting John. At the same time, James was asked to maintain regular contact with the team in case of any sudden developments. As he left the investigation office, a sense of relief washed over him. But deep down, he knew the real game was only just beginning. From here on, every step would be like walking a tightrope. One misstep and everything could come crashing down. Not long after James's meeting with the authorities, to senior undercover investigators, veterans of high-risk operations secretly met with Tung at a secure location arranged by James. The meeting took place in a sealed, silent room, a place where no curious eyes could intrude. After verifying Tung's identity and a safety code, the officers got straight to the point. We've heard James's report, one of them said, his gaze sharp as a blade. And if it's accurate, John isn't just one man. He's backed by an entire underground network. We need to build a full-scale operation, the other officer continued, his voice low and firm. Tung, you're the only person who can get close to John without raising suspicion. You're the strategic piece that can flip the board in our favor. Tung listened in silence. Gone was the hesitation from before. This wasn't just a chance to redeem himself, it was a duty to Diep, to James. and to the conscience he thought he had lost. The investigators laid out the plan in detail. Step 1, they needed a full audio recording of John, explicitly revealing his plot. This would serve as evidence for prosecution, justify the mobilization of a larger task force, and allow them to request an emergency arrest warrant from the prosecutor's office. Approach him as soon as possible, one officer instructed. Subtly prompt him to repeat the plan. We'll provide you with a disguised recorder, compact, signal-free. It must remain undetected. Once you have the recording, send it through the secure channel. Leave the rest to us. Tùng nodded, a swirl of emotions rising within him, nervousness, determination, and a grim sense of purpose. He knew that even the smallest mistake could expose him. But if he succeeded, he could save Diep, and maybe save himself from the pit of betrayal he had once fallen into. Looking the two officers in the eye, Tùng spoke slowly, deliberately, each word heavy with meaning. I'll do it for Diep, and this time, I can't afford to fail. As planned with the Special Operations Unit, Tùng took the initiative to call John, fabricating a reason to meet in private to clarify some key details of the plan. His tone remained loyal, laced with just the right amount of doubt and cooperation, exactly how John was used to hearing him. While making the call, the phone in Tung's hand was already recording everything thanks to a disguised app, camouflaged as a standard weather forecast application. Once activated, it would automatically record the entire conversation without signals or suspicious icons. The meeting was set at an abandoned house on the city's outskirts, a location John believed to be discreet and difficult to track. Tùng arrived early, scoped out the area, then waited in silence. The wind swept through rotting shutters, carrying a chill and a creeping sense of unease. When John appeared, he suspected nothing, still cautious but confident. He stepped inside and looked at Tùng. So, he said, what was so urgent? Tùng faked a grimace and shrugged. I just want to make sure everything's clear. This is big. One mistake and we're both screwed. John let out a cold, dismissive laugh. Then, without hesitation, he began to go over the entire plan again. How they would lure Diep away from safety, the timing of the abduction, the holding location, and the strategy to force James into signing over the company. Every word, every detail was being recorded perfectly by the hidden app in Tung's pocket. As the meeting wrapped up, John received a phone call and hurried off, leaving Tùng alone. Not wasting a second, Tùng opened the disguised app and sent the audio file through the secure channel. To the task force, he let out a long breath. He had done it, but just seconds later, the door creaked open. John stepped back inside, his face tightened with suspicion. Wait, what were you just doing on your phone? Tùng froze but forced himself to stay calm. I was just checking the time and a message. John said nothing. He walked swiftly over, snatched the phone from Tung's hand. Tung's heart was pounding. If John found anything, it would all be over. John swiped through the screen, checked the call logs, checked the voice recorder. Nothing. The stealth app, designed by the undercover unit, had worked flawlessly, invisible and undetectable unless you knew exactly where to look. After a few agonizing minutes, John tossed the phone back, his expression cold. Be careful. In this business, I don't tolerate anyone playing both sides. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Tùng standing there, still shaken but quietly smiling. He had done it. He had succeeded. As for Diep, she lived each day haunted by an aching longing for James. Every morning when she woke, every night as darkness fell, she quietly hoped that he still thought of her. Remembered the days they spent together, the little moments they shared that, though small, were filled with warmth. She remembered the peaceful weekend afternoons, when James would take her strolling through flower gardens, his hand always gently holding hers, as if afraid the wind might carry her away. She remembered the way his eyes silently followed her every time she smiled, an expression that made her feel safe, cherished, and truly loved. Even now, when she couldn't reach James, when he had suddenly vanished from her life without a word, Diep had never stopped believing in the love they had nurtured to her. James was still the only man her heart belonged to. Tùng still visited her often, bringing essential things, sometimes flowers, sometimes kind words of concern. But what drained Diep the most were the words that cut deeper than kindness could heal. Those moments when Tùng spoke to bluntly, James doesn't deserve your love, you're longing for someone who was never sincere, he abandoned you, I never did. Tùng made no effort to hide his feelings. He confessed more than once, always with the same certainty, I love you, Diep. I want to be with you this time, I mean it, but each time, Diep simply fell silent. Then gently shook her head. Her voice was calm, but her eyes held a quiet, unshakable resolve. Thank you, Tùng, but in my heart nothing has changed. I still love James. No matter how hard Tùng tried, no matter how often he stayed by her side, Diep kept her distance. She didn't want to hurt anyone further. She didn't want to lie to herself. Her heart from the beginning until now has only ever belonged to one person, James. Will James, Tùng, and the police catch John before he makes his move? Can James and Diep overcome the misunderstandings and rekindle their lost love? Stay tuned for the next episode. To uncover all the thrilling twists and turns, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss a single moment.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều vì mọi người đã dành thời gian để theo dõi hết video. Và mọi người ơi, trong tập này thì quá là nhiều bất ngờ diễn ra đối với Diệp và Diệp cũng như là Tùng. Một cú quay xe phải nói là cực kỳ bất ngờ từ phía Tùng, khi mọi người đã tưởng chừng như Tùng là một kẻ xấu đi cùng với John để hại Diệp và Diệp. Nhưng bây giờ thì vì tình bạn cũ và đặc biệt là vì tình yêu với Diệp, từ tình yêu với Diệp thì Tùng đã suy nghĩ lại và Tùng đã trở lại một con người tốt. Tùng đã làm điệp viên, làm gián điệp cho cảnh sát để đồng thời sẽ bắt tên John phải trả giá với những tội ác của mình. Vậy diễn biến như thế nào? Liệu Tùng, Diệp và Diệp có chiến thắng được John kẻ tàn ác? Và tình yêu của Diệp và Diệp có thể quay lại như xưa hay không? Và họ có thể tiếp tục đến bên nhau tươi đẹp như những ngày đầu? Thì mọi người hãy đón xem phần tiếp theo để biết rõ câu chuyện này hơn nha. Và nhớ đăng ký kênh để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mọi người nhé.